What is going on, everybody? As most of you know who have been subscribed to my channel for a while, you know how much I love the horror genre. And I haven't really gotten into talking about it specifically in detail, but I am a huge fan of John Carpenter. John Carpenter's movies are super important to me, and I've seen a lot of his filmography, but every now and again I stumble upon a movie of his that I have not watched. And thanks to the wonderful people over at Sutter, I was able to watch a film of his that has been on my list for a while that I have not been able to see. And the movie I'm going to be talking about today is In the Mouth of Madness. In the Mouth of Madness is directed by John Carpenter. With the disappearance of hack horror writer Sutter Cane, all hell is breaking loose. Literally, author Cane, it seems, has a knack for description that really brings his evil, creepy crawlies to life. Insurance investigator John Trent is sent to investigate Cane's mysterious vanishing act and ends up in the sleepy little East Coast town of Hobbs End. So all you had to do to sell me on this movie was John Carpenter and Sam Neill, and I was sold. This movie opens with Sam Neill being dragged into like a mental institution, and he like draws crosses all over himself. And this guy comes in to talk to him and he says, "Hey, I don't think that you're insane. I really want to get you out of here, but you got to tell me what's going on." And so the film is Sam Neill's character is giving a background into what was going on before he got into the institution. He works as a private investigator, and he's one of the best private investigators that anyone's ever seen. And the publishing firm who publishes Sutter Cane, who's like this universe's Stephen King, although I will give John Carpenter some credit, he dropped Stephen King's name in the movie so that it's like less of a direct shot at Stephen King. The publishing firm says that Sutter Cane disappeared, they can't find him anywhere, and that he just gave them the manuscript to publish his newest book, and that they can't really do anything with it until they find him. They've got to find out if he's dead, what's going on. Sam Neill's character decides that he will trek off to this place, Hobbs End, who no one's ever seen on a map, but he deciphers from cutting the covers of the books together that if you look at the map, that Hobbs End is in this specific location, and that maybe it's just like a hidden place, or he calls it that in his books, but it's possibly called something else. The woman who works at the publishing firm is the editor for Cane's books, goes with Sam Neill to go investigate, and this movie is absolutely unhinged John Carpenter, and I loved every second of it. So this movie has a lot of like schlock in it, but it also is really incredibly well written, where you have bringing along the editor of these books, so when they get into Hobbs End, which is like this really sort of like ethereal way that they travel in the car to arrive to this place. And it's like at one point they're driving in the same road over and over again. And they see this kid on a bike who then turns into an elderly man on a bike who flashes back to a kid on a bike. And it really builds up that suspense to when you finally get into this town that is literally like a desolate wasteland. It's a beautifully kept town, all the houses and the shops and everything. It looks pristine, but there's no one there. And so they're going through the town, and Sam Neill's character is trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. And the whole movie is you trying to decipher who is Sutter Cane, what power does his literature hold, and what is he doing. And obviously, Sam Neill's character thinks that this is a publicity stunt being put on by the publishing firm to make more money for this book. And that adds a whole nother layer into it, because Sam Neill's character sees all this wild shit that's occurring in this town. He's constantly trying to decipher in his head, is what I'm seeing real, or is this just a farce? And the woman that's the editor who's with him, he's seeing all this for the first time and is like trying to convince him like, hey, this isn't fake, this is real. And you trying to question her loyalty and whether or not you can actually believe her. This movie is just insane. The practical effects in this film are fantastic. A lot of them come to shine a little bit more in the third act, when things really blow up and get really out of control. But what I liked about this movie is, compared to a lot of John Carpenter's earlier work, which my favorite John Carpenter film is and always will be The Thing, because despite the ambiguity of the third act, the movie is really just a straightforward horror film that's really well crafted. And most of John Carpenter's work that I've seen is very just like straightforward horror stories that are so well told and well acted and well shot. This movie was like a very surreal and just otherworldly experience that like I wasn't used to with John Carpenter, because it does have a relatively straightforward narrative, but there's so much included that kind of sends your mind wandering as an audience member that I really appreciated. And by the third act, you're asking yourself so many questions as to like, what power does this book hold, and what John Carpenter's perspective on horror and like the effects of horror literature on society, and what people believe in and how belief affects people. And it really has so many layers to it that made me appreciate this film even more. The score to this movie is fantastic, as per usual. All of John Carpenter's stuff typically is really easy to get into and fun to listen to. And it always accompanies the film so well, and I always love watching a new Carpenter movie because I know I'm going to get a great soundtrack and awesome performances. I'm a huge fan of Sam Neill. I have been for a very long time. One of my favorite movies ever made is Possession from 1981, and Sam Neill gives equally as amazing as a performance in this movie as he does in that one. He's so committed to the material, and he's so believable in this role, and he was the standout of the whole film for me. I really think that this is one that I'm going to grow to appreciate more upon rewatches. Right now, I would say of the Carpenter films I've seen, it's probably sitting at like number 3 or 4 on my list, because I really appreciated just how wild this movie got. Where like you look at a film like They Live, which kind of goes off the hinges a little bit, this movie felt like it went even more so in that direction. And so if you have a Shudder subscription and you're a John Carpenter fan and you haven't seen this movie, I'd highly recommend checking it out. It's such a unique and fun experience, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again. So have you seen In the Mouth of Madness? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was brilliant. I love John Carpenter. I think he's one of the greatest horror filmmakers that's ever lived. And I'm looking forward to watching more in his catalog, because there's still a lot of movies of his that I haven't seen. I think I've watched around 7 or 8 of his films, and each one that I watch I love more and more. So I'm looking forward to diving deeper into his catalog and watching more of his movies. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.